What is up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast, where we are destigmatizing mental health one episode at a time. Everyone, I am so grateful that you guys joined me today. If you're not already a part of the team, a part of the Wellness Center tribe, if you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Guys, the goal is 500 subscribers. We're currently at about 165. We are well on our way. So again, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you have a friend or family member that you know needs the skills and tools taught by my guests that come on every single week. Again, share the episodes with them. Let them know that you care about them. Let them know that you've been thinking of them, and give them the resource that's totally free for you. Guys, if you're on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave that 5-star review for me to let me know that I'm doing a great job. And if not, leave me a 5-star review and tell me what I can do to improve. But either way, make sure it's 5 stars. So guys, without further ado, I want to bring on my guest today because I am really excited about this gentleman. So guys, by way of introduction for my rock star guest, so he is the founder and co-host of the Next Level University podcast. Through his personal journey, he's overcome near suicide, and he's had to find his true purpose from it. He's dedicated to self-improvement and impacting others. He's a top 100 podcast with nearly 1,700 episodes. He's achieved over 1 million listeners in over 170 different countries. He's a role model podcaster and speaker, and through all of this, he's achieved personal and professional success. So without further ado, I'm going to butcher his last name, but we're going to try it. It's Kevin Palmieri.
It's gonna be a fine day today, I can see. It's gonna be a fine day today, I can see. Gonna be a fine day today for you and me.
Kevin, how you doing today?
Chase, I'm usually the one who brings the energy, so I really got to up it if I'm going to keep up with you. I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate the introduction, and my goal is to add value. So hopefully I can add a shred of value to the amazing audience you have cultivated today.
Kevin, I appreciate that. And you know that my personal belief is because you're a human with a story, you have value. So no matter what you say, no matter what you do, I know it's going to be valuable. So I'm super excited for this. And
Likewise.
guys, and if you're not on YouTube watching this, guys, I mentioned this beforehand, but I am just enthralled with his background for some reason. It's so cool and geometrical. But so Kevin, dude, just so I can get to know you a little bit better and the listeners can as well, can you give us just some like cookie cutter answers as to who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah, today I am a man who loves helping people get better, whatever that means. I am obsessed with self-improvement, and self-improvement changed my life. It saved my life. So I get to podcast every day. I get to speak to amazing people like you every single day. I am the ultimate cat dad. My wife, literally, I got them today. She bought me for Father's Day. We don't have any human children, but we have cat children. She got me pants that have my cats on them. Photos, like photorealistic pictures of my cat. So I'm the ultimate cat dad. I will go toe to toe with anybody over that in a joking kind of funny way. But yeah, I'm a simple dude who loves getting better, who loves helping people get better, and I do a little rapping on the side. I love mixed martial arts, and if I can make you laugh, I'm also very happy.
Yeah, I feel like you and I are going to get along really well. So
100%.
my wife, I grew up with cats on a farm. My wife's family's got 4 cats. I'm a boxer, so I love the martial arts. And
Nice.
a lot of people actually don't know this about me. When I was in high school, I was involved and produced a rap album as well. I'm not good at it. I don't claim to be, I'm a white boy from Utah. I can't rap to save my life. But no, dude, cool. A lot of synchronicities there. So
Yeah.
That's super cool. How many cats do you have?
2. Fudge and Ace. Fudge and Ace are our cats.
Fudge and Ace. I'm assuming what kind of cats are they?
Fudge, he looks like a Bengal, and then Ace looks like a Bengal, and then Fudge is all black. All black. He's got a little white on his belly, but he's all black.
Dude, that's awesome. And then, so what kind of got you into being a cat dad?
So this is a true story. Okay.
Okay.
When I started dating my wife, she said, "I will have cats. If we're going to be together for a long period of time, we're going to get cats. And if we get married and live together, we're going to have cats." I was very allergic to cats, Chase. Extremely allergic to cats.
Okay.
So my business partner told me about this place that he went, because he used to be allergic to cats, where they essentially reprogram your central nervous system through allergy testing so you're not allergic to certain triggers. And I was like, there's no way this is going to work. I just didn't want to have to go get allergy shots every week for however long. So I said, let me give this a try. So I go into this like holistic wellness place and they say, all right, we're going to hook you up to a machine. It's going to muscle testing. Have you ever done muscle testing before?
Oh yeah, yeah, kinesiology, right?
It's something, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Something
It's
like that.
something.
Mhm.
So they muscle tested me while running cat allergens through this electromagnetic frequency thing.
Hmm.
And I couldn't resist the muscle test. And I'm a fairly strong individual. I work out. I try to be strong.
Mhm.
And they're like, all right, these are your allergens. It's dander, it's saliva, it's whatever.
Mhm.
Cool, whatever. I paid you $90. I think I'm going to lose the $90. I don't think I'm going to get anything out of this.
Okay.
So then they run the same frequencies through this cuff that's on your arm while they stimulate your spinal column.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Then they do the muscle test again, and I could resist it. And they're like, yeah, you're good. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm just good now? And they're like, yep, you should be good. Give it 24 hours before you come in contact with a cat, but you should be good. So I don't know, it was probably like a week later. We went to the shelter to get our 2 kitties, and I was around cats for like 3 hours, and I didn't have a single allergic reaction. We brought them home, and I'm healed. Now I'm not allergic to cats at all.
I will fly to wherever this holistic business is because I'm the type of guy that like if a cat touches me, I get hives.
I used to. I'm telling you, it blew my mind. When I explain it to people, a lot of people are very hesitant to believe it, understandably so.
Mhm.
But I went from being allergic to the point where my eyes would swell shut and I would get like wheezing to the
Mhm.
point where my cats kiss me and sit on my head. It doesn't matter. I'm totally healed. I don't know how.
Well, dude, congratulations.
I appreciate it. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that's awesome, dude.
It was good for my relationship too, because my wife would have left me if I couldn't get cats. So
Well, at
That
least she
helps.
had at least she had the expectation and the boundary set in place, right? Like
she's very honest. I appreciate that about her.
honestly, that's like all you can ask for in a
100%.
relationship is just that total honesty. So, dude, like let's dive into it. I want to start celebrating you, Kevin. So take us back to a young and how do I'm sure I butchered your last name. How do you say it?
Palmieri.
Palmieri. Okay. So, Kevin, take us back to a young Kevin Palmieri. When were some of the first times you noticed you were struggling with your mental health?
I didn't notice that I was struggling with my mental health until I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
I remember I had a girlfriend in high school and she used to go to counseling.
Mhm.
And I said, why do you go to counseling? What's that all about? And she said, well, I have depression and anxiety.
Mhm.
And I remember asking ignorantly, I said, what does that feel like? Are you just like sad? What I don't understand what that means.
Mhm.
I didn't have any understanding. I didn't have any context around what that was. I don't know if I experienced it and I just didn't understand it. But when I really started to understand that mental health was something I was going to have to work on and work through and understand and become aware of, I had achieved what a lot of people would consider external success.
Mhm.
So I was in my mid 20s.
Mhm.
I had a girlfriend that was a model. I had a sports car.
Mhm.
I was in really good shape. I was actually preparing to do a bodybuilding show the next year.
Mhm.
I had a high paying job. I had all the stuff. I had all the stuff that you could want. But I remember one day I was home alone. I was off of work for the day and I was all by myself and I was playing Call of Duty. And I remember putting the clicker down after playing for a couple hours. And I remember thinking, if this is all that life is, this gray existence,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do it anymore. I don't know if I want to do this. And it wasn't a suicidal ideation. It wasn't me contemplating anything. It was just me coming to the realization that I think I'm depressed. I think I'm going through what depression is.
Mhm.
So my partner came home and I told her that, and she said, I really think you should go to therapy. And I said, unnecessary. I am tough. I'm strong. Tattoos, bodybuilder, fighting. Don't need it.
Right.
I'm good. It'll pass. I'm
You've
good.
got the mental fortitude. You don't need that kind of help.
Yeah, I don't need it. That's not for me.
So
I
I
mean,
can
it's
get-
good. I know it's good, but I don't need that.
You know, if I can handle getting choked out 3 times
Right.
a week doing my
Yeah.
combats, if I can get punched in the face, I can handle a little bit of
Yeah, yeah.
sadness and existential
is
crisis.
nothing.
Totally.
This is nothing.
Right.
But eventually I was humble enough to listen to what she was saying, and
Mhm.
I reached out and found a therapist in Boston.
Mhm.
You want to talk about anxiety, you go Parallel Park, downtown Boston. That is a whole thing. But I got into the city. I parked my car. I went to the place I was supposed to go to, and I'll never forget. I was walking up this spiral staircase in this old brownstone building in Boston. And when I sat down in the waiting room, I remember thinking to myself, number one, I'm terrified I'm going to cry.
Mhm.
Number two, I'm terrified this person's going to judge me. And number three, I really don't want to do this at all. And I
Yeah.
think many of us have had that experience. It went really well. The person didn't judge me. I did cry for sure,
Mhm. Oh, of
but
course.
it was a good cry. So I went in thinking to myself, therapy is going to be the worst thing ever. I absolutely am going to hate it. It's going to be challenging, to leaving and saying, wow, I learned a lot about myself and I feel better. I feel good. I feel like I'm excited to do this again. So it was a very short amount of time between when I realized something was going on with my mental health to me doing something about it.
Mhm.
And, things kind of went up and down from there.
Dude, that's cool, dude. And so I'm curious though about like your childhood, right? Because it sounds like there was some, and I say this respectfully, right? There were some traits of toxic masculinity. I'm too tough, right? I don't have to deal with this. I got this.
Yeah.
How were some of those traits developed and taught to you in your childhood?
I was actually raised by my mom and my grandmother.
Okay.
So I didn't know my dad.
Okay.
I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. I had always been searching for a positive male role model, but I never really found one.
Mhm.
So I think that the hard exterior was mostly just me egoing up and dealing with insecurity that way.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any male role models, so there wasn't any toxic masculinity. There wasn't any masculinity.
Gotcha.
So I think for me it was, I can handle more pain than most people.
Mhm.
That's always been my unique difference, is
Mhm.
I can just handle more pain than other people.
Yeah.
I used to want to be a professional wrestler,
Okay.
and my cousin used to beat me over the head with a metal folding chair,
Okay.
heavy metal folding chair.
Yeah.
He beat me with a wiffle ball bat. He used to throw me into thorn bushes, and there was a little piece of me that kind of liked it. I was like,
Mhm.
I can handle this,
Right.
right?
It's proving your
wanted-
strength.
Yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
I wanted to be a stuntman for a short time. I was
Mhm.
like, this would be a cool job. You get thrown through windows and stuff. This is awesome.
Right.
And then even when I played baseball, I was a really good baseball player, but I was very reckless. I would do front flips over the catcher. I would jump through the fence, whatever I had to do in order to make the play.
Mhm.
So I was always, my handle on Instagram is never quit kid. I have never quit tattooed on my arm. Like, that's my thing, is I can
Yeah.
handle more pain than anyone else. So I just think at that point in time, I was convinced that it's not a big deal. I've worked through quote unquote worse, I
Mhm.
think that was my thought. And
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. I always figure it out.
Love that, dude. And honestly, that's a great mentality to have too, right? Just keep going,
Mm.
never give up. I kind of have the same thing with my arm. So my arm is nothing but cracks. It's cracked but not broken, right?
Yeah,
Life
yeah.
has beaten me up, cracked me up, but it hasn't broken me.
See,
Cracks are beautiful too.
you and I are, look, this is a rose coming through concrete. You and I are the
Yeah.
same person.
We are the same person. Yeah, absolutely love it, dude. So your dad, was he ever in the picture when you were young, or?
Not to my recollection. So he was, there's a movie with Jim Carrey called Liar Liar.
Yes.
From my understanding, that is kind of how my very early childhood was, where he would say he would come get me, take me to wrestling, take me wherever, and he would just never show up. And then eventually it got to the point where my mom basically told him to get lost, because if you're not going to be around when you say you are, you're not going to be around at all.
Right.
So that was, I didn't really have any memory of my dad, to the point where when I met him when I was 27, I didn't even know what he looked like. So I had
Wow.
no memories of him at all.
And what was that like, actually meeting your dad at 27 for the first time?
I was sitting on the couch and I was scrolling through Facebook,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize this at the time, but Facebook had a folder for messages that came from people that you weren't friends with.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. I was like, wow, what's this? Let me scroll through this.
Mhm.
And I saw a message that was from 2 years prior. And it said, hey, Kevin, I'm blank. I'm your father's girlfriend. And Chase, I took my phone and I hot potatoed that thing right on the floor. And I said, we're not doing this today.
No.
Not
Yeah.
today. It's Saturday. Not going to do it. I won't do it.
You got a sports car you got to go drive.
Yeah. I got to go to the gym. I got to go get jacked. I got to go do something. But then curiosity got the best of me, and I read the message, and it said, "Hey, Kevin, I'm blank. I'm your father's girlfriend. He has been seeing what you're doing on Facebook, and it looks like you're super happy, and it looks like you're doing really well in life. And if you'd like the opportunity, if you'd want the opportunity, he'd love to meet up." And I remember I fell on the floor. I started bawling my eyes out because for most of my life, I had villainized this person with the understanding that I was never going to have to face them.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that the only time you're going to see someone is at their funeral when you're peeing on their grave, when you're never anticipating seeing them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's the small dog syndrome where once you open the gate, the dog's like, I don't know if I want to bark at this person anymore. So I messaged back and I said, yeah, let's do it. I think it's important for me. I think this is something that I need to do, even though I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
One of my friends said, do you want me to come with you? Because they knew my backstory. And I said, no, this is one of those things I got to do alone. This is one of those things. This is like the turning point in a movie where the lead character says, I got to go do this thing, even though I don't want to do it.
Right.
So we agree on a date. We agree on a place in between where we lived. And I drove down. I got there early. I remember pulling in and saying, all right, here we go. I'm super nervous. I don't know what to be. I don't know how to be. Do I be vulnerable? Do I be closed off? I don't know. I guess we'll see as we go. I remember walking in and sitting down and then thinking to myself, Chase, I don't know what this person looks like. So I don't know how to figure out when he gets here.
Right.
I don't know what to do. I saw a guy walk by the window and I knew. I said, that's my dad. I don't know how I knew. It was just one of those intuitive things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, you could just tell.
Yeah.
He came in, he knew what I looked like because he was creeping on me on Facebook. And he sat down, and then it was probably like the most awkward conversation you can imagine. It was just
I can imagine.
Hey, how are you? What's life been like? It was just very shallow.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to overextend.
I mean, how do you, like, in that moment, sit down and say, hey, I was your father and I neglected you for 27 years. How's life?
Right. Well, he said he was sorry and he cried. But there was that piece of me that was like, you're not getting any of that from me. Not a chance I will give you that. Nothing.
Yeah.
You will get nothing from me.
Yeah.
What I learned that day, probably one of the best lessons I've ever learned, is I looked across the table and I had empathy for a man who has never worked on himself. I have worked more on myself. At the time I was 27. I had worked more on myself at 27 than he had at however old he was. I don't even know how old he is. I was the father in that relationship. Yeah. When I sat across from him, it was like, you couldn't possibly handle the amount of power I have given you to villainize. You couldn't handle it. You don't deserve it.
Right.
So I left that day with forgiveness. That was a big piece for me.
Yeah.
With empathy, because his life didn't turn out very, very good. And my life has. It's turned out pretty great. I'm very happy. I'm very fulfilled. I'm very grateful. I'm happily married, all that stuff. And I left with that lesson. The lesson for me was I've given him all of this power over me when he couldn't even handle it. And he didn't wake up one day and decide he wanted to try to wreck my life. It wasn't personal.
Yeah.
He's a human going through his own thing, his own human experience. And I ended up seeing him a couple times after that. We ended up spending time together a few times after that. And then I made the decision that what we're trying to build is not going to be a priority for me. And it's just not sustainable for me to put in the time, energy, effort, and focus necessary to grow it. And I just kind of let it die.
That
and
makes
I'm one of those people where I don't start friendships I know I can't maintain.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to lead someone on and say like, yeah, we'll get coffee. And I'm never going to get coffee. I didn't want to do that with him.
Right.
I didn't want to lead him on and hurt him. It was just easier for me to kind of say, look, this isn't going to be what you think it is. And there's too much. You've missed too much. I'm doing things that you don't understand. And I just don't think I can bring you up to speed.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And I can imagine in and of itself, that was a hard decision for you to make.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking of him. I was afraid of hurting him. That was my biggest fear is if I cut off communication, it's going to hurt him.
And that makes sense. And, and the cool thing about doing recovery work and self-improvement is it's, that might hurt him and that's his choice,
Yeah.
right? He those feelings that he chooses, those are his. So thanks for letting me dig in a little bit about your
Of
childhood
course.
and there with your father, man. So I want to take you back to, um, that part where you go to therapy and you realize that it was effective, but there were some up and downs going forward, which I think leads perfectly into my second question, which is that of the hero's journey. So for those just listening for the first time, the hero's journey is essentially a pivotal moment or an extreme trial that someone had to face that ultimately allowed them to step up and become better. So Kevin, will you please describe for us your hero's journey?
Yeah. So after that bout with therapy,
Mhm.
it worked so well that I stopped going, which is one of the most common mistakes I think we make as humans.
Was it just a one and done?
No, I think I went like 3 times and I was like, thank you so much, doc. I'm healed.
There we
I'm off.
go.
I'm off to the races.
Love it.
Yeah, that again, common mistake. I think that's what happens for a lot of us. The diet works so well, we stop. The massage works so well, we stop, whatever it is.
Right.
So everything for the next 2 years was kind of normal. Like I went back to, I was grinding my face off. I was working a ton, lifting weights, signing up for bodybuilding competitions, all that stuff. My partner and I moved from Boston to New Hampshire.
Mhm.
We got a brand new apartment together. And I threw out my bodybuilding prep. For anybody who doesn't know, bodybuilding, you look very good, but you are extremely unhealthy. It's just, you're under nutrition's, it's terrible. It's very bad. It's terrible for your hormones. It's not good for your mental health, depending on who you are.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was brutal. Absolutely brutal. So I do this bodybuilding prep and I do this bodybuilding show and I end up winning my class and I get some plastic trophies that I threw away later. And that was a very interesting time in my life. But after that happened, after I finished the bodybuilding show, my girlfriend ended up leaving me because I was just a shell of a man by the end of it. I went all the way back. I was depressed. I was anxious. I didn't want to leave the house. I was afraid of my own shadow. And she literally said to me when she broke up with me, she said, I wanted to leave you during your bodybuilding prep, but I was genuinely afraid you would kill yourself. And I was like, how did it get to this place?
Yeah.
I didn't recognize that at all. I didn't recognize anything was really happening. So when she left me, I was convinced that nobody was ever going to love me again. How could you ever love this broken, scarred version of Kevin? As much as I'd like to say that's where I went all in on self-improvement, that's not where I went all in on self-improvement. I thought to myself, if I make a boatload of money, I can probably fix most of these problems. That was my trauma response, was make money, increase certainty, create more choices.
Right.
So the next year I ended up spending, so I worked in an industry called weatherization. We would go into buildings and make them more energy efficient.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it was a cool job at the time. Since I worked for the states and at times government contracts, I was making anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour.
Great pay.
I was making really good money and I was like, all right, I'm going to grind my face off and make as much money as I can. So that next year I spent 10 months living on the road because a lot of our contracts were in other states.
Okay.
And you want to talk about not being good for my mental health, just staying up for 24 hours repeatedly. That was every single week. I stayed up for at least 30 hours, at least one day. Hammering energy drinks. I used to have I used to have like 2 Monsters and a coffee, eating fast food almost every day because I'm living in a crappy hotel.
Living out of your car, essentially. Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much. But I was making money. So I felt in alignment with the ultimate goals that I was chasing. So we got to the end of that year. I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. And I didn't feel any different. I remember opening my final pay stub and thinking, oh, when I open this, everything's going to change. I'm going to feel so happy. I'm going to feel so confident. My self-worth's everything's going to be awesome. And nothing changed. And I remember thinking to myself, for most of my life, this was a big awareness for me. For most of my life, I have lived unconsciously. I don't really know why I do anything I do. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So shortly after I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast in 2017, which was my thought of, well, if I can ask myself challenging questions, I'll learn more about myself, and then I can have cool conversations with cool people. Love that. Let's do that.
Sounds like a great model for a podcast.
Yeah, right? That's exactly what you and I are doing right now, pretty much.
Yeah.
I fell out of love with my job because I've reached the pinnacle and I'm not willing to do what it takes to get there again. As you know, in the beginning, people aren't exactly lining up to give you money for your podcast. Chase, I love your podcast. Here's $25,000. Spend it as you wish.
That would be nice.
That would be very nice, but that usually isn't the case, right? So
right.
I have to keep going to this job, and every time I'm packing my bag and driving to the office to pack the van to prepare for a 6 or a 12 or an 18-hour drive, I'm already homesick and I haven't even left yet. The podcast doesn't really seem real because I'm barely doing it because I'm always on the road and I'm struggling to keep up. So I start calling out of work. I start leaving the job sites early. I start showing up late. I am just out, but I can't really be out. I have bills to pay.
Right.
And this all led to me waking up in a hotel room in New Jersey, which is 6 hours from where I lived at the time. My alarm clock went off at 5:15 or 5:30. I sat up, I slid to the edge of the bed. I was lacing up my work boots as I had done 1,000 times before then. And that morning, it just felt like there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one was on a different station. One is saying you're stuck here forever. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to get this job. The reason I got here was all luck. I can't leave. I'm so lucky to have the opportunity I do. What am I going to do? I can't leave here. If I ever did leave, what would my friends think? I'm the most successful person in my friend group, and that feels good. As much as you hate to admit it, it feels good.
It does.
Right? I'm making more money than anybody in my family ever has. At that point, I don't know if anybody in my family had gone to college. So it was like, I'm actually a success. I crawled out. And then the biggest thing that was hurting was, do you really think you're going to do the podcast thing? That's what we're going to do. That's our plan B. Of all things, that's the plan B you've come up with. So in that moment, I thought to myself, well, if I was just to take my life, I would take my problems with me. And
you're done.
Yeah, I'll take that, and I won't have to worry about any of this, and I won't have to work through any of this.
Right.
I'm very blessed, Chase, because I have amazing people in my life, and I have for a long time. I have wonderful humans in my life. So I reached out to one of them, who's my business partner now. He was just my friend at the time. And I said, hey, man, I'm going through it, and I'm having some pretty dark thoughts and some pretty dark feelings, and I could use some help. And he's very long-winded.
Is that Alan?
Alan is very long-winded.
Okay.
And he said many things. I think we were Snapchatting. I didn't even call him. I sent him a message on Snapchat. And he said, Kev, over the last couple years, your awareness, hyperconscious, has changed a ton, but your environments have remained the same. I think it's time for you to change your environment. So there was obviously other conversation. That's the biggest thing I remember.
Yeah.
And then I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later. Him and I partnered up, and then we became very broke entrepreneurs / podcasters trying to figure out how do we make a difference in the world? How do we impact more people? And how do we turn this into a business? And then from there, it was grind and be broke. And I couldn't afford Christmas presents for my girlfriend one year. I got sent to collections because I couldn't pay my car insurance. My car broke down and I couldn't get it fixed. It was absolutely brutal. But here we are 6 years later. We have 1,750 episodes, and yeah, we have $1 million business, and we crossed a million listens. So it's been a heck of a journey, but I didn't go from leaving my job to where I am today. Believe it or not, somehow it got worse after I left my job.
Sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better. You know, the term I love to use is sometimes when you hit rock bottom, you have to excavate the cellar.
You and I, Chase, are the same. My quote is, some people have the misfortune of hitting rock bottom. Other people find out that rock bottom has a basement. So you and
Exactly.
I are the same human, except you have much better, thicker facial hair than I do for sure.
I appreciate that, Kevin. I promise it just comes. I don't know why, to be honest with you. So my dad, he doesn't have thick facial hair. My brother can't grow like he served a mission in Mexico, and the joke I tell him is he integrated that culture in him because he's got the mustache. That's it.
Mm.
That's all he wants to grow, but super, super patchy on the cheeks. So I'm just the one lucky guy in my family is really all
I'm
it is.
jealous.
I'm sure you could grow a rock solid beard though.
No, no,
I,
definitely not. I'm telling you with certainty that I can't. I've tried.
fair enough. But dude, Kevin, thank you for sharing your story, bro.
Of
It's
course.
such a cool story. I really appreciate like the vulnerability. I know people that are entrepreneurs that listen to this show are connecting with you right now. They understand that grind set mindset. They understand the hustle mentality, everything you talked about. And a lot of the, man, I can't believe I'm doing this. And that breaking point too. A lot of people I know that they have the job, they're being successful, and out of nowhere, they're just like, ah, shoot, this isn't for me anymore.
Mm.
And how do they do that transition? So I'm curious, dude, over the 6 years, right, that you became a full-time podcaster, what were some of the skills that you developed to stay sane mentally, emotionally, as a business person, and how have those skills developed up to this point in your life?
In the very beginning, I was doing a lot of journaling and a lot of meditation.
Love it.
So when Alan and I started to work together, he's like, "Hey man, you should start tracking habits. I think that would be super beneficial for you." And I
Hmm.
was like, "Nah, dude. What are we talking about? No, I'm not going to track my habits. What is
Hmm.
this?" And then I ended up tracking my habits and I fell in love with it. And two of the habits in the very beginning were meditate every day for probably 10 minutes
Hmm.
and journal every day.
Hmm.
And I became so regimented in that I felt like I was making so much internal progress. I was making zero external progress. I was the brokest I had ever been.
Hmm.
I was the singlest I had ever been. I was the loneliest I had ever been. It was brutal.
Hmm.
But I remember having a moment where I was walking around the kitchen one day. I moved in with my best friend so we could chase our dreams together, my other best friend.
Hmm.
And I remember walking around the kitchen one day thinking to myself, I am broke. I have no prospects of love at all.
Hmm.
Nobody cares about this podcast, but I am the most proud of myself and fulfilled I have ever been. What is that about?
Hmm.
And I think it's because for not the first time, but maybe the deepest version of it, I was connecting with me. I was connecting with myself. I was doing meditation. I was journaling. Alan and I were having deep conversations about life every single day.
Hmm.
When I say podcasting and awareness and deep conversations have saved my life, I'm not kidding. I have deep conversations every single day, and it's the best because it helps me understand myself at a deeper level. So that would be one, is just always digging to the why underneath the thing. That has been something I've been doing with Alan and everybody else since day one. That's been super important.
Hmm.
And a practice that has gotten more and more and more and more valuable for me is something I do when I'm really low emotionally or really high emotionally.
Hmm.
I sit down and I go look back at old content. And I remember what it was like to be 10 episodes in and miserable,
Hmm.
or 100 episodes in and broke. I did a speech recently to a mastermind with one of my friends now, which is weird to say, Evan Carmichael.
Hmm.
And this was a dream come true. This was bucket list. Wow, if I could do that, my life would be amazing.
Hmm.
And I did it, and I went back to the Airbnb. I ordered 6 tacos, 6 of the best tacos I've ever had in my entire life. And I took out my phone and I was crying as I was scrolling through old content, because I think there's a piece of me that's like, I knew I'd make you proud if I did this long enough.
Hmm.
There's that piece. There's anybody who ever doubted me, like, egg on your face. There's definitely a little bit of that. There's a little ego there for sure.
Oh, for sure.
But I really think the biggest thing is I'm so proud of who I've become and who I'm becoming. And it's so easy to lose sight of that when crap hits the fan. It's
Right.
so easy to lose sight of that when you lose a client, when the business isn't growing the way you want it to. When I'm struggling and I don't think I can keep going, I look back and remind myself of how far I've come. When I'm crushing it and I feel like I've arrived, I look back to see how far I've come and how far there is left to go.
Hmm.
So that's one of the best things ever for me to help me stay grounded. What I always say on other shows is, if you're listening or watching, you might not have a podcast Understandably, not everybody does.
Mhm.
What you can do is you can take out your phone and you can record a video right now and say, today is blank date, and this is what I'm currently going through. This is how I feel about my love life. This is how I feel about my wellness. This is how I feel financially. These are my struggles. These are my wins. Record that, audio, video, whatever, and then go check in a month, in 2 months, 6 months, and see how far you're either growing or, unfortunately, you're not. It can be challenging. But that's been something that has helped keep me sane, because it's easy to lose sight of why you started when you're doing a million things every day that don't necessarily feel like they're attached to the mission in the first place.
I love that. I'm actually going to do that when we get off the episode today. I'm going to do that self-awareness check-in. I love that.
I
And I love
appreciate
that.
it. Yeah.
I love that you're talking about like self-awareness and like regulating yourself as a thermostat, right? Like so many people are thermometers, right? Where they go about their day and it's like when they're high energy, they're high. When they're low. When they're even keeled, they're even keeled. And I just think it's so important as a human to be a thermostat, not a thermometer,
Mm,
right? You got to set your schedule. You got to have those things that help you grow. I love that, dude. Thank you
I
so
appreciate
much.
it. Of course. Of
Um,
course.
so that point where you did that mastermind, how many episodes were you in? What was the podcast like when that happened?
The mastermind where I cried,
Yeah.
that was last week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was last week.
That's
So
awesome.
I think that's the beauty of this whole thing is I'm still going through it. It's just different.
Yeah.
The phase I'm in is every time I get an external opportunity, it reveals an internal void, for lack of better phrasing.
Love it.
Then I work on that internal void, and then I get a new external opportunity that facilitates the same thing. And it's become this thing where, oh, you want to be a speaker? Cool. Here's a speech. Go do it. It's like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. Oh, you're not ready? Well, this is what you wanted. You're ready for this. Go try it. Oh, great job on the speech. I'd actually love to bring you in to speak to my crew. Oh, it's bigger? Oh, man. Okay. That's kind of become the journey where every time I do something external, it reveals the things that I need to work on internally. And then when I work on those things internally, I feel confident enough to do the next thing. And it's become this perpetuating fear chasing, for lack of better phrasing, that I've been doing for the last 7 years. And it never ends. I'm scared of a lot of the stuff I do today, not podcasting because I'm so used to it, but a lot of the stuff I'm growing through is stuff that I never expected to happen to me in the first place.
Dude, I love that. And I've got two questions for you that I think are going to be like an actual nugget of gold here. So what got you into the mentality of chasing fear is a healthy form of growth? And what are the processes that you use to work through what I call the chinks in the armor, right? Those cracks.
So when my girlfriend left me, so this was 2016.
Okay.
When she left me, I had 2 weeks where I was just down in the dumps. I was just going to the gym, just crawling through workouts, just trying to keep my mind busy, not going on social media. I couldn't cope. Then when I started to come out of that, I remember I had a day where I was like, I'm going to get dressed up nice. I am going to go to the mall and I'm just going to go talk to women. I need to like get my vibe up. I need to do something that is just outside of this cesspool of feelings I'm dealing with. Like I need to go do something that'll make me feel good.
Love it.
And I remember like leaving the mall that day and I was like strutting my stuff. I felt really good. I felt like I had accomplished something. So that was really one of the first times I ever did it. Then Alan and I, that was always kind of our thing, is the reason you're not where you want to be today is probably because you're not doing the things that you're afraid to do that you know you need to. So when I started working with Alan, I had a lot of opportunities to do stuff that scared me that didn't scare him. It doesn't scare him to give a speech. He's a freak. He doesn't care. He's not thinking about that.
Right.
Alan in many ways has been the best he's the best business partner I ever could have asked for, because he's completely opposite to me. There's nothing that he doesn't believe is possible for him. Nothing. Not from an arrogant place, but that's just how high his self-belief is. So every time he'd say, all right, Kev, I think it would be important for us to go to this networking event. I had to fear chase. I don't want to go. I'm scared. I don't want to do it, but I had to do it. The first speech I ever gave, that was based on the fact that he's like, hey, we should start speaking. I didn't want to do it, but I just did it. And this all culminated to a point that made a lot of sense to me when a listener of our podcast reached out. It's probably 2018 and said, Kev, I am so afraid to start conversations with strangers. I know I need to fear chase, but I'm afraid to do it. And I said, all right, I got you. I'm working on this. I can work on this with you. Meet me at the mall, because they were local. And we're going to go talk to people. That's what we'll do. We'll just go talk to people. So I met this young lady at the mall. We walked into a store that sold beanbag chairs.
Okay.
And I said, I just want you to go up to the counter and ask the person how much that beanbag chair costs. That's all you got to do. And she was nervous. She said, I don't know. What if they get mad at me? I said, they're not going to get mad at you. They're probably bored. I mean, how many people are buying giant beanbags every day? They're probably waiting for someone to come in and ask them a question.
Right.
So she goes and asks the person, and it goes better than she expects. So we go to another store, same thing. Another store, same thing. Another store, same thing. Then we go down to the food court. Ask them how they cook this, what's in this, all that. How much does it come with? How much does it cost? Can I get extra? Whatever. And we're getting ready to leave that day. And we were walking by this thing at the mall that was these mechanical zoo animals on wheels that you could rent. So you could rent the giraffe. You ever seen those?
She had to rent one, didn't she?
She wanted us to rent them together.
Okay.
And Chase, I had a moment where I said, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I think I may have created a monster here. She had so much momentum built up that she wasn't afraid to fear chase because she had been doing it all day. So I had to do it because it's like, oh, geez, you're going to look like an idiot if you brought her here and you don't do the thing that is like the culmination of everything she's accomplished.
Right.
So I have a video on my phone of us riding those around the mall. And then she ended up going back to college, even though she didn't feel smart enough. She got a 3.9 GPA. I think she was smart enough to go back to college. She ended up moving from a very small town in Rhode Island to Nashville, Tennessee, chasing her dreams. And then she literally worked on our team for a couple of years.
That's cool.
That was, for me, that locked it in. That was one afternoon. She went from not being able to have conversations with strangers in her eyes to literally saying, if we weren't afraid of judgment, we'd rent these animals and ride them around. That is the best representation of how fear chasing works. All it is it's just exposure therapy. That's it. We just exposed her. She did more work than I did to a little bit of fear, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then ultimately I remember we had a competition on the team who could get rejected the most when we were doing an event. And whoever got the most rejections got $100 Amazon gift card. And she won. Somebody who was so afraid to get rejected and of judgment, she's the one who won the Amazon gift card because she got rejected more than anybody else. That locked it in for me of, this is a thing, and I just have to do this forever. And I still do. Every single day, I'm doing something that I'm uncomfortable doing. You just probably wouldn't know it because either you don't see it or maybe I come across as confident, but I'm not as confident as I seem in most arenas, I'd say.
I love that, Kevin. Thank you for sharing. That was
very welcome.
Such beautiful information there. Fear chasing, guys. So if you haven't done it, this is your call to action. Go out and chase some fear today. Go do it. It'll make me and Kevin proud. And then leave a comment as well and let us know what you did to chase that fear so we can celebrate with you on your resilience there.
100%.
So, dude, Kevin, looking back at everything you've gone through up to this point in your life, what can you appreciate about all the hardships and trials you've had to go through?
The somewhat challenging days aren't really that challenging because I've been through a lot worse than, oh, we lost a client. It's not the end of the world. You know, it's not the end of the world. We can go get more clients. Or I think the biggest thing is my relationship with uncertainty is so much different than it used to be. If I had uncertainty, I couldn't move forward. It would just sidetrack my entire day. Now there are things that I am so uncertain of that just float away into nothingness that I don't really think about. It just doesn't faze me. So yeah, I think that I've heard this before on many different things: meditation, mindfulness, self-awareness. When you work on the inside of the vessel, the external, the waves crashing against it, the weather, the heat, the wind, the hail, it doesn't affect you internally as much. That is what this journey has done for me. I'm much more at peace internally, regardless of what's going on outside. I still have certain things that get me. Fear of disappointment's a big one. That sidetracks me. That's something I'm working through.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's given me more self peace and allowed me to stay more within myself when things are hitting the fan, which life is weird, life is challenging, and you're most likely going to have stuff hit the fan. It just is the way it goes.
It is what it is. Absolutely.
It is what it is.
That's awesome, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you for
Of course.
sharing. So I know we're kind of running out of time here, and I want to give you plenty of opportunity to talk about like the stuff that you're doing in your life and the places that where people can find you. So kind of my last big question for you is for those listening to this podcast, just getting into the realm and the world of mental health. What advice do you have for those people?
I would say get a therapist, counselor, someone that you trust as soon as you can. Just because we take our cars and we get our oil changed and we get our engines checked. Before you buy a home, you get a home inspection. There's nothing wrong with you doing that, even if you don't feel like you need to. Like, well, I don't need it. It's not about needing it. It's about the growth that's going to happen when you do it. It doesn't have to be a necessity. It can be something that is constructive, something that you say, I really want to do this because I'm going to learn about myself at a deeper level. That would be one thing. And then the second thing would be, if you feel like you're struggling with being vulnerable around the people that you care about, I would ask yourself a question of where can I find more people that I feel safer around? I think being vulnerable is already hard. Never mind if you have a fear around who you're being vulnerable around. Chase, great example. I can be vulnerable with you. I'm not worried about you judging me. I'm sure you talk very deeply on this podcast. I'm sure you would have the same conversation with yourself and go as deep as I have. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
But if there was somebody on the other end of this that I thought was going to judge me or whatever it is, use this against me, I wouldn't be able to be as vulnerable. So really look at the people around you and ask yourself, who can I be the most vulnerable with? And how can I practice it? You don't build an umbrella on a rainy day. You build an umbrella long before the storm starts, so you have it when it's going to rain. That's how I've tried to look at vulnerability. When I reached out to Alan in my moment of need, there was no fear around it because we had already had so many deep conversations. So it didn't really require vulnerability for me to do that. But it was built in. So if you can be proactively vulnerable, I think it helps with your mental health because then you can lean on someone and say, hey, Chase, I'm having a rough day. You mind if I vent for a bit? I think that's something I wish I knew earlier.
Yeah, I love that, dude. That trust in people too is so important. Have you ever heard of the anatomy of braving from Brene Brown?
No.
No, so really cool resource for those. So if you're looking to find people to trust, I use this specifically. So braving is an acronym that Brene Brown uses, and it's how you create trust with people, right? So if you're looking to be vulnerable with people, the B stands for boundaries, R is reliability, A is accountability, a V is the vault, right? How good they can actually hold the space for you and those hard parts and actually keep it to themselves and not gossip. I is integrity, N is non-judgment, and G is generosity. Right. So as you're looking for people to share with, as the listener, make sure that they're meeting those criteria for you, because that's going to be important. Right. You are a very sacred and amazing person, and what you have deserves to be held in the highest regard. And what's going to be really cool, too, that I know Kevin will agree with, is one of the best feelings in the world, is to say, hey, I'm depressed. Hey, I'm anxious. Hey, I'm suicidal. And to have the person respond and say, oh, man, me too. Like thank you for trusting me. Me too. Let's work on it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. That's vulnerability. That's a real authentic connection. That's safety. Right. That's authenticity. I think that's what we're all after.
Like authenticity, safety, vulnerability. Every person wants to be loved, valued, and understood. Right. And if you can show up authentically and safe with all of that stuff that you've talked about today, Kevin, that's where true relationships are grown.
100%.
Thank you for sharing all of that. So,
of course,
Kevin, dude, I know we're running out of time, man. Tell us a little bit about the Next Level or the Level Up podcast university that you have and some other things that you're doing in your life.
My goodness. Yeah, if you are looking for episodes to listen to after you binge all of Chase's every single time he drops one, do not come to us and leave Chase. Please do not do that. We have a podcast called Next Level University. An episode drops every day. So we do 7 episodes per week on all the podcast platforms, on YouTube as well. And what else are we doing? We have a ton of free stuff. So we have free courses, we have free meetups, we have a free book club. We're in the business of giving away as much as we can. We just love adding value. So check out nextleveluniverse.com. It has everything you need to know. And then if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you need anything, you can DM me on Instagram. My handle is @neverquitkid.
Perfect. Absolutely love it. And I'll make sure all of that stuff, the courses, the Next Level University, the Never Quit Kid on Instagram, is all going to be in the description as well. So if you guys are interested in going and seeing more what Kevin and Alan are doing, just check down in the description. Last time, Kevin, thank you absolutely so much for coming on the show today, brother. I really appreciate the story, the authenticity, the vulnerability. You have been one of my favorite guests so
I
far.
appreciate it.
Dude,
Thank you.
yeah, dude, you're an absolute stud. And for those listening up to this point, I really authentically appreciate you tuning in and listening to this full episode and just staying here with us and listening to all of the amazing stuff that Kevin shared with us today. Guys, he dropped so many gold nuggets of truth, so many bombs of knowledge, and it was truly awesome. So I really am grateful for that, guys. If you haven't already on YouTube, again, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Again, the goal is 500 subscribers. And if you haven't already, go to Apple or Spotify and leave us a 5-star review and just give Kevin a shout out and let him know how awesome you are. It's going to make me feel great to get the 5-star review. It's going to help Kevin feel great because you're leaving great words for him. And yeah, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in again. I really appreciate it. Again, just be on the lookout, guys. My book and my coaching, all of that stuff is being formed and generated. So that's going to be coming out soon. So just get excited and ready for that. And then again, please make sure to share this podcast with people. If you guys want to know more about what I do on the day-to-day basis, please go to www.thewellnesscenter.life, where red light therapy retunes and revitalizes every cell in your body, one session at a time. And if you want to come on the show and be a guest yourself, just understand that no story is too big and no name is too small. If you do have a story I want to share at all, please contact me at chase@thewellnesscenter.life. Again, everyone, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace out.